So we're in the final stretch here of the Canadian 2025 federal long-awaited election. And you would think that it would be, smooth sailing. Actually, I don't know a single person who would think that it's going to be smooth sailing. It's been very toxic and manipulative. And now we're finding out that it's also breaking a lot of laws. Mark Carney's staff has broken some actual federal laws and there's no repercussions. Pierre Poilievre is tremendously coming back in the polls, so that's pretty freaking awesome. And Doug Ford is caught in a series of twisted lies. So yeah, there's a lot to take a look at in this video. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And if you want a matching sticker like the one here on my microphone, then feel free to visit the link down below in the description or the pinned comment below. Be sure to use code SAVECANADA, all in caps, one word, to get yourselves 20% off. This is until the election is over, and then we're going to revisit everything that is on that store. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with some criminal offenses by Carney's team. So this is weird. This is called Buttongate. I can't believe this is real. But apparently, the Elections Act bans false statements to mislead voters. Under Section 320, it requires authorization tags. Violations can mean $50,000 fines and 5 years in jail. Sure, those buttons may seem like a small prank, but they may also be criminal because they're just presenting themselves as, official election products when that's not the case at all. So Buttongate, for those who don't know, this entire criminal offense revolves around the buttons shown on the screen right now. This happened during the Canada Strong and Free Foundation's annual conference in Ottawa this past weekend, where quite literally Liberal staffers infiltrated the conference and tried to pass as Conservative operatives and distributed these fake buttons that praised Trump and tried to hurt the Conservatives with unhinged messaging. Stop the steal, assuming that the Liberals, that's like, a message that the polls are fake. And it's just super freaking weird, right? To try to pass that on as actual federal conservative buttons. So it's actually illegal, according to the criminal code, to try and pass as a representative, a candidate of another party to try and hurt their chances. Very, very weird. So the further we dig into this, the crazier it gets. Buttongate is now embarrassing Carney in the country he actually cares about. So the Guardian reports that Liberal staffers plant Stop the Steal pins at Canadian Conservative conference. And this is a real thing. Like, it's even been admitted by Mark Carney, and he publicly apologized for his staff trying to manipulate the election. Kind of weird.
Members of the Liberal War Room, so the Central Campaign, distributed Stop the Steal buttons at a Conservative event. Given the anti-democratic implications of this phrase, how much does this event undermine the trust in the way that the Liberals operate, and what have you done in response to these revelations?
Thanks for the question. Look, this is totally unacceptable, to be absolutely clear. And I, on behalf of my campaign, I was unaware of this behavior, but on behalf of my campaign, I apologize for it unreservedly. Okay. I've made it absolutely clear to my campaign that this behavior or anything approximating it or in that spirit is unacceptable, cannot happen again.
So he apologized, right? All should be clear, and we should just absolutely forgive him for the criminal offense that his staff has committed. Very, very weird. Then you had an official Liberal party that issued a statement regarding Buttongate. This is the most important election in a generation because of the historic economic crisis that is facing Canadians today, and the Liberal Party of Canada will continue to run a positive campaign focused on building Canada strong. After many news reports last week about a Conservative infighting and prominent Trump allies being hosted at this Canadian Conservative conference, it's been reported that Liberal campaigners had created buttons poking fun at those reports, which regrettably got carried away. Okay, at least they're admitting that, but still kind of bizarre. While it is worth noting that many materials being shown online have nothing to do with members of our team, the party acted quickly to review the matter. As leader, Mark Carney also made it clear to the campaign that this does not fit his commitment to serious and positive discourse. So, I mean, this is the hypocrisy right now with Liberals, and this is even being represented on Global News. Liberal leader Carney says it was totally unacceptable that two party campaign staffers reportedly planted buttons at a Conservative event. So the hypocrisy about all of this is the fact that when the Liberals have a scandal, and there seems to be a new one every week or sometimes a couple of times a week, all it does for the Liberals is offer free promotion. There's never any resigns or resignations. There's nobody ever getting fired. Nothing ever happens. There's no accountability ever. Even if it's, falsely allocating billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, spending taxpayers' money fraudulently, insider trading, or the list continues. Liberals scandals equals free promotion and a singular headline that basically just shoos off into the wind within 24 to 48 hours. When the Conservatives have any sort of little hiccup, a tiny little thing, a Conservative farted in the back row of a Sunday mass, cancel him, he's a Nazi, right? Like, it's so bizarre, the contrast and comparison between any Conservative hiccup and actual literal crimes done by the Liberal Party. I'm just sick and tired of living in this country where there's such a bias, such leniency for Liberal people, Liberal supporters, our Liberal politicians, but Conservatives are just demonized by the media for ultimately nothing that compares to how the Liberals are committing literal crimes, a literal crime to falsely plant fake pins like that to try and bash your opponent. Very, very bizarre. But all of this is actually reflecting in the polls, and it's looking very good for Pierre Poilievre. So according to Main Street Research, the Conservatives now are up to 44%. And the Liberals are down to 42%. So that's looking pretty interesting in comparison to CBC's poll tracker, where they're saying Liberals are at 44 and the Conservatives are down to 37. But they're saying that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP are at 8.2%, when that just doesn't seem to match with other polls. Jagmeet is actually at risk of losing official party status, which I just can't help but smile. And then when you look at the breakdown of Main Street polling, you'll see here that in the month of April, the Conservatives have held an above 40% lead, which is quite phenomenal to see. So again, you're getting so much conflating noise of who's leading in the polls and what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, use your gut feeling. We have those instincts for a reason. If you feel like there's something fishy going on with the Liberals, it's likely true. Trust your gut feeling. If you think that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have a tremendous amount of support, not only in, Edmonton or different parts of Alberta where there's thousands and thousands of people that show up at rallies, but across the country rather, to the point where it's going to have a tremendous blue wave effect with this election, then trust your gut feeling. Now we're going to move on here and take a look at what's going on with Doug Ford, because Doug Ford is supposed to be a Conservative, yet he's kind of sort of indirectly promoted and endorsed Mark Carney, and he's very critical in a lot of negative ways to Pierre Poilievre, which could hurt Conservatives in Ontario and sway public opinion. And so it's very, very bizarre to see this type of reaction from Doug Ford, but I can't say that I'm surprised, since people have been literally screaming from rooftops saying Doug Ford is not a Conservative, he's a Liberal pretending to be, and now we're finding out, that's actually true. So let's take a look at this.
Tonight ran Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign and has faced a backlash over his public criticism of Poilievre's campaign. Today, Doug Ford came to his defense and took his own jab.
He's tough as nails, but he's the best campaign manager in the country, and to be very frank, if Corey was running that campaign, I don't think Mr. Poilievre would be in the position he's in right now, but it's still a lot of time left. We still have debates. At the end of the day, the people will decide which way they want this country to move forward, but sometimes the truth hurts.
And for more, let's go to CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapellos. Vashi, how unusual is it to see these private divisions to be exposed so publicly, and how are the federal Conservatives reacting?
Yeah, it's definitely extraordinary, Omar, to see two such high-profile Conservatives in this country so openly at odds, particularly at this juncture, right? It's not after the outcome of the election, it's in the middle of the election, and I think that has been kind of remarkable to see unfold. I spoke to Melissa Lantsman on my program earlier. She's the deputy leader of the party. I put this whole thing to her, exactly what Doug Ford said today. She contends that though there may be disagreements between Doug Ford and Pierre Poilievre, when you go a number of layers down through all the MPs and MPPs, that there is actually no love lost, that there is love, I guess I should say, between everybody, that they do get along, and that the kind of animosity that you may see, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, but the animosity you may see play out at the top levels certainly does not speak for the entirety of the Conservative world in Ontario and federally. So she contends it's kind of a lot ado about two people and not the rest of the movement.
All right, let's get back to that apology from Mark Carney now. Will that be enough to put an end to the controversy?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think perhaps he might get some additional questions about who is responsible here and why they have just been reassigned and not fired. I think mostly, though, it might play into the debate because the Liberals have certainly taken to likening Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to the MAGA movement or to Donald Trump. If they do so, if Mark Carney does so in the debates, you can only imagine that Pierre Poilievre will use this incident to push back on that.
I mean, it's very likely that Pierre Poilievre will try to weaponize this to the best of his ability during this debate that's supposed to happen in, tomorrow, the French one, and on Thursday, the English one. But again, accountability, right? It's not even Pierre taking advantage of the situation. It's just Pierre doing the common sense thing. Why is nobody being fired for this type of wrongdoing? It's not an oopsie mistake. He didn't just happen to trip and fall into a Conservative event and accidentally plant what could be harmful or what is harmful pins and try and pass it off as Conservatives. It doesn't just happen by accident. Talking about mens rea, the intent to actually do something. And there's an entire ladder of series of events that took place in order for Liberals to get to that point, or the Liberal staffers to get to that point. So again, very, very bizarre. And I think that we would all like to see a little bit of accountability from the Liberals. Now we're going to take a look at what the recent comments were about Doug Ford in terms of the auto sector and manufacturing plants in Ontario, specifically Southern Ontario. Here we go.
Got off the phone with the president of Honda Canada, and they're sending a statement out clarifying what Reuters said. It's not accurate at all. They want to increase production down in the U.S. They're at 100% capacity right now, so they're going to make a statement. And I'll let them make their statement, but saying that's not accurate.
So there's a whole bunch of people in Alliston holding their breath in other factories across Canada. What do you say to them?
Well, we're going to keep Honda here, and I'll do everything I can to protect the people and their jobs. And that's what this throne speech is all about today, is making sure that we protect people's jobs, protect communities and businesses right across the province. We have to streamline processes to make sure we're more competitive around the world, attract new companies here. And that's exactly what our throne speech is and the mandate the people gave me after the election.
And he wants to attract more American companies to invest in Canada. And this is the same man that literally came out the gate, guns blazing, going, we're going to shut off the power to 1.5 million homes in America, and we're going to try to cause as much harm to Americans and American families while minimizing the damage done to Canadians. This guy's a sociopath. He's unfit for office. He's been rumored to be a fat pig with rabies mentality, but I don't know. Maybe it's not just the mentality. Maybe it's the entire presence. Look, Doug Ford needs to get out of the way. The guy is a freaking maniac, and he's causing so much harm to not only Canadian reputation, but specifically to those living in Ontario. But never mind Doug Ford. Now we're going to take a look at what Pierre Poilievre's remarks were earlier this morning in a speech about new policies that are going to better Canada, specifically protecting Canadians from scams. Here we go.
Great to be in Montreal with our incredible team that's going to deliver change to Canada. Our Canada First Conservative team joins me for this important announcement as we approach the key decision day in this change election. And the decision, of course, is that after a lost Liberal decade of skyrocketing cost of living and crime, do the Liberals deserve a fourth term? Or is it time for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, unleash home building and resource development, bring home our jobs to make our country strong for a change? That's the decision before us. But one of the things we have to do to bring home the Canadian promise, the promise that hard work gets you a good life in an affordable house on a safe street, is to protect our seniors. Imagine spending your life working hard, saving carefully, preparing for your retirement, only to see it all disappear seconds after a scammer comes in and takes over. One call, one click, and it's gone. Unfortunately, this is the experience of thousands of Canadians who have fallen victim to increasingly sophisticated frauds in recent years. After the lost Liberal decade with costs and crime up, the most vulnerable Canadians, especially our seniors, are left behind. They cannot risk a fourth Liberal term. A growing threat to all Canadians, but especially seniors, is predatory telephone and online scams. Let's hear some examples. An 81-year-old Montreal woman robbed of $100,000 when someone called pretending to be from her bank in a telephone scam described as sleek and professional. And in June of last year, again, right here in Montreal, 8 young men and women were scammed out of $30 million. 8 young men and women carried out a scam of seniors worth $30 million. According to conversations recorded by and obtained by police, the scammers started each call with the words, "Hi, Grandpa, hi, Grandma." And in Ottawa last year, 2 seniors were scammed out of $500,000 each in a new and sophisticated version of what the police call the grandparent scam, where criminals claim to be loved ones having financial trouble and needing money for bail. And in the recent and possibly the most harrowing case of all, a grandmother received a call late at night from what she thought was her son, telling her he had been arrested and needed thousands of dollars for bail. Only it wasn't her son. It was criminals using AI to mimic her son's voice, exactly designed to convince her to pay up. Can you imagine that? Do you imagine your 80-year-old mother getting a phone call from a voice that she thinks is yours, and you are asking her for money? Of course, your loving mother or grandmother would do anything for her kids or grandkids. And that heart of gold then makes her vulnerable to the worst, most sociopathic scam artists. How could anyone use the altruism of a mother to rob them of their life savings? It is appalling. In 2022, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Detection Centre received 17,000 reports of scammers targeting seniors, totaling $137 million in losses. That's just the tip of the iceberg, because only 5 or 10% of these cases even get reported. But we've all seen them. The suspicious text messages and robocalls. Sometimes they're easy to spot, but not always. But with AI and other technologies, the scams are more sophisticated and persuasive. Anyone can be taken in, and successful scams can drain savings from within minutes. A lifetime of hard work can be robbed from the most wonderful people. These scams are a source of real anxiety for seniors who may worry that technological development means they can't trust anything is real anymore. Family members of older parents and grandparents know the stress well. I have 2 parents that are over 80. I'm not going to tell you exactly their age because my mother will kill me. She never told me her age. She accidentally entered it in Facebook when she set up her account, and that was how I finally learned her exact age. But anyway, we won't. She's still 39, if the truth be told, and she's my most important advisor. But we all love our parents, and we worry about them. We worry that life is becoming more complicated and dangerous for them, and that's why we need to protect our seniors, especially in this modern age. But the bad news is that after the lost Liberal decade, no action has been taken. No mandatory detection, no mandatory reporting, no accountability, even though these tools exist. That's why today I am announcing our plan to stop scammers who target Canadian seniors. We're going to pass the Stop Scamming Seniors Act, a common sense law that forces banks and telecom companies to deploy state-of-the-art technology to catch scams and stop them before they happen, not after, when it is too late. This plan has a number of key steps. 1, we will mandate real-time scam detection systems by banks and telecoms, starting with seniors' accounts. 2, we will require automatic flagging and blocking of suspicious activity like unusual transactions or robocall traffic. 3, we will create the Seniors Transaction Shielding Protocol, a 24-hour hold on a high-risk transaction for seniors or anyone else who requests this extra protection with mandatory verification before money leaves their accounts. 4, we will impose public reporting requirements so Canadians know how many scams are being blocked or missed. 5, we will impose mandatory jail time of 1 year for $5,000 of fraud, 3 years for a fraud of over $100,000, 5 years for fraud over $1 million, and minimum fines that are 10 times the size of the frauds committed. You steal 50 grand, you'll pay 500 grand on top of your jail sentence. We want to financially cripple the fraudsters to deter their greed. 6, we will introduce tough penalties with up to $5 million per violation for companies that fail to deploy the latest technology to stop scams. 7, we will create a new criminal code offense, willful blind profiteering from fraud, holding executives criminally responsible if they knowingly let scams go unchecked. Our seniors deserve to feel safe and secure when they pick up their phones, iPads, or computers. So if you are a bank or telco, we want you to do everything you can to protect our beloved seniors who built this country. Under my government, we're going to stop these fraudsters, period. All Canadians deserve protection from crime. But under 3 terms of Liberals, all they've gotten is broken promises and failed policies. Violent crime is up 50%, gun crime up 116%, gang homicides up 78%, auto theft up 46%, and extortion up an eye-watering 357%. Enough. We need a new Conservative government that will stop crime, protect victims, and get criminals off the street locked behind bars, not on bail, not on parole. Only a new Conservative government will do that. We'll pass a 3 strikes you're out law, making anyone who's done 3 serious crimes ineligible for bail, parole, probation, or house arrest with a minimum of 10 years behind bars and earned release required after that through perfect behavior, clean drug tests, and learning an employable skill. We will give life sentences to traffickers of human beings, of guns, and of fentanyl. And we will reintroduce a law that allows judges to impose consecutive sentences for multiple murderers. We will ensure multiple murderers never get out of jail. They will come out only in a box. Common sense sentencing with no more discounts for multiple murderers. Now, on this point, I have to say I was shocked by the incendiary comments of Mark Carney yesterday. Yesterday, Mark Carney said it was dangerous to keep multiple murderers in jail for life. Mr. Carney, do you know what's dangerous? Murder is dangerous. What's dangerous is Liberal laws that allow repeat murderers and repeat violent offenders to be released again and again on our streets. That is what's dangerous. You know what else is dangerous, Mr. Carney? Your house arrest law, passed by Liberals, which you want to keep in place, that allows the most violent predators to do their sentences in the comfort of their living room watching Netflix. Liberal law C5 allowed more than 700 sex offenders in Quebec to do their sentences at home. That's a 600% increase. Conservatives will repeal this dangerous Liberal law. You know what else is dangerous, Mr. Carney? Liberal Bill C-75, which lets violent criminals free within hours of their most recent arrest over and over and over again. You know what's dangerous, Mr. Carney? Last week in Vancouver, a man set 2 police officers on fire. We have since learned that the criminal who attacked these officers was out on bail and had 10 10, count them, Mr. Carney, outstanding charges, including for violent crimes. That's dangerous. And you know what's most dangerous of all? A fourth Liberal term of catch and release crime and chaos in our streets. So that's the choice. After a lost Liberal decade of skyrocketing crime and cost of living, of criminals released again and again, do you want to give them a fourth term? Or is it time for a change with a new Conservative government that will lock up criminals and make life affordable? Canadian seniors cannot afford a fourth Liberal term of crime and chaos. They need change. They need a new Conservative government that will restore Canada's promise. And that is what we will do. Not only will we protect seniors from crime, we will cut their income tax by 15%, allow them to earn up to $34,000 tax-free, and to keep their savings growing longer, should they so choose. Because the Canadian promise belongs most of all to the people who built our country, our seniors, our loved ones, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents. They deserve the Canadian promise that their hard work gets them a beautiful home on a safe street under our proud flag. That's the change we want. Let's put Canada first for a change and bring it home. Thank you very much for your question. First of all, President Trump deserves nothing but condemnation for the unfair targeting of Canada. While he's lifting tariffs and backing down on tariffs all around the world, he continues to tariff our auto sector. There's nobody who's going to be able to control President Trump, as Mr. Carney is learning, despite his promises. What we should do is focus on what we can control, and that is to reverse the disastrous Liberal economic policies that Mr. Carney advised Trudeau to take, that have driven up taxes, blocked our resources, wrapped our businesses in red tape, and driven $500 billion south. We need change. We can't afford a fourth Liberal term. We need change to axe taxes, cut red tape, approve resource projects, make this the best place in the world to do business. That will allow us to, once again, be a country where hard work pays off, with a great paycheck and a reliable job in an affordable house on a safe street. We need is change. This is a change election. Change so that you can afford food and a home. Change so that your paycheck grows faster than your cost of living. Change so that you're safe in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Merci. Prochaine question.
No, we should not lift counter tariffs.
Good morning. Sorry. Morgan Lowry, Canadian Press. On a different topic, I was wondering if you could tell us what you mean concretely when you say you'll end woke culture in the public service and the military.
Very simply, after a lost Liberal decade of dividing Canadians, turning people against each other, and weakening our armed forces, we need to put Canada first. We need to unite all Canadians around our common promise, a promise that hard work gets you a great life on a safe street, and by the way, in an affordable home under our proud flag. Unfortunately, the Liberals have been distracted from that mission. You know, I think of, for example, their woke criminal justice agenda, which releases the same radically violent criminals onto our streets again and again and again. Instead of that, we should lock up the criminals. Their woke agenda on spending has doubled our debt, given us the worst inflation in 40 years, so that single moms are having to turn back some of the groceries that they're trying to buy when they get to the till and see the price, and has endangered our people in our streets. We need to reverse that, get back to Canadian values of living within our means, leaving more in the pockets of the hardworking people, and letting people get ahead. So the election is really about change. Do you want a fourth Liberal term of skyrocketing costs and crime? Or do you think it's time for a new Conservative government that will change things so you can afford food and homes and be safe on your street? In English as well. The question was, do I have any evidence that locking up repeat violent offenders actually reduces crime? And the answer is yes, I do. When Conservatives were last in power, we brought in mandatory jail time for serious repeat offenders. Violent crime went down by 25%. And incarcerations actually dropped because it deterred crime. Since the Liberals took office and passed catch and release, house arrest, and the get out of jail free card for Paul Bernardo, violent crime has exploded, up 50%. Gun crime, since they started got rid of the mandatory jail time for gun offenses, gun crime is up 116%. Murders by gangs, up 78%, right after the Liberals passed catch and release bail. Car theft went up 46% after Liberals brought in house arrest for car thieves who can now sit around in their living room playing Grand Theft Auto while they're serving their sentences. Extortion went up 357% after the Liberals eliminated mandatory jail time for extortion with a gun. So those are the facts. You let repeat violent offenders back out on the street, you get more crime under the Liberals. That's the record. We cannot afford the danger and risk of a fourth Liberal term of catch and release criminal justice. We need a change to lock up repeat offenders, make our streets safe, and restore the Canadian promise with a new Conservative government.
Merci. On va maintenant passer à la dernière question.
Now we'll go to the last question.
Christopher Nardi from the National Post. I'm going to quote a well-known parliamentarian and say this is just a simple yes or no question. Will you defund the CBC within 100 days of government?
I don't have a time frame, but we've already said I've already made my position clear on that, and it hasn't changed. We're going to defund the CBC and let Canadians enjoy it as a non-profit, self-funded organization. Yeah, which is what I've said all along, while protecting services at Radio Canada. Because without Radio Canada, the francophones across the country would not have access to that information.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, it'd be super awesome for you guys to show your appreciation by smacking a like on the video, subscribing to the channel, turning post notifications on so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos. And I will see you all in another video. Bye for now.